I've kinda been half and half on Inside Number 9 Series 5, but this is one of those cases where that's a good thing. That's healthy. That's a sign that the show's doing what it's supposed to do. The reason I love Inside Number 9 so much is that it's truly free and experimental in nature, but it's contained that free and experimental nature inside a very disciplined format. Creative freedom is something that's valued by writers and talked up by nerds on the internet all the time, but face it people, a series that's got creative freedom and nothing else would be a complete mess. Inside Number 9 is a dark anthology series that offers Shearsmith and Pemberton a certain type of creative freedom that allows them to do whatever they want, but the creative freedom comes with conscriptions that make it work. It must have a limited number of characters, be contained within a small setting, and always be treading fine lines between horror, drama, and comedy. And that gives the series this rigid and recognisable framework, while also allowing it to drift freely between all sorts of styles and means of narrative presentation. And when you're doing something as loose and varied as this, obviously you're not going to hit everyone's wants and needs every single time. But even when the show misses for me, I always find that I respect what it's doing in every case. I just appreciate the wild and unpredictable nature of this format, and complaints that I might have about certain episodes are usually down to personal tastes, because a lot of the time when I've looked at other people's lists of top 10 episodes, they've contained episodes which didn't do much for me, while conversely, other people have disliked episodes that are some of my personal favourites. Apparently lots of people don't like the harrowing, when I think that's one of their strongest. It's personal tastes rather than anything that Shearsmith and Pemberton are doing. They're exceptionally talented writers and performers, and they're doing what they always do, and they do it incredibly well. This is encapsulated perfectly in the opening episode of Series 5, The Referee's a Wanker. It works and is interesting, or it would be to me if it weren't for the fact I have the least amount of interest imaginable in its subject matter, football. Whenever anyone starts talking about football, my eyes just glaze over and I'm waiting until everyone starts talking about something I find interesting again. Whenever I've tried watching football, it's just looked like a bunch of differently coloured blobs moving across a green screen. It's like a Star Wars movie that hasn't been finished yet. So I was never going to be too into an Inside Number 9 episode about football. I do get what it's doing though, it's putting men's overemphasis of the importance of football through the lens of high drama, presenting match fixing and changing room drama like it's this Shakespearean conspiracy and like it's a matter of life and death. It's showing how absurd it is that people take football so ridiculously seriously. I get what it's doing and I agree with its thesis, but I didn't enjoy The Referee's a Wanker solely because it's about football. And yes, this complaint feels incredibly weak and stupid and pathetic, but it's demonstrative of my point about how the show has to do whatever it wants, but it's because of this that it's not going to be to everyone's tastes every single time. And that's not the show's fault, and it's proof that it's doing its job, and I can appreciate that. I'm sure if you're an Inside Number 9 fan and you enjoy football, you'd probably love the shit out of this one. Next up we had Death Be Not Proud, and I think it might have been a bit of a mistake to put this one so early in the series instead of one of the ones with a bit of a broader appeal, because this one is purely fan service for people who watched Shearsmith and Pemberton's previous show, Psychoville. If you didn't watch Psychoville, I highly recommend checking it out. It's a black comedy horror serial hybrid where it fleshes out a bunch of essentially sketch characters and puts them all in this long-running gothic horror storyline. Characters like Joy, a nurse who believes her plastic doll is her real baby, or Oscar Lomax, an eccentric blind collector of rare Beanie Babies, or David and Maureen Sourbuts, a cartoonish mother and son serial killer duo, might have been characters that just existed for a series of 2-minute sketches in any other show, but they're explored in so much more depth in Psychoville, and their characters are taken so seriously to the point where it's absolutely hilarious. Death Be Not Proud sets itself up like any other Inside Number 9 episode. A couple move into a flat with a dark history and experience supernatural goings-on, but then David shows up and he starts telling our straight-faced regular Inside Number 9 innocent bystander character, played by Jenna Coleman, the ridiculous story of how he was haunted by the ghost of his mother. As someone who was really into Psychoville, seeing David and Maureen being disturbingly incestual again was wonderful to watch. The episode is incredibly funny, and the nostalgic bit of my brain just ate it all up. The only problem was that it didn't really feel very Inside Number 9 to me. Inside Number 9 started life as an experimental episode of Psychoville, so it makes sense to mirror the show's beginnings with this special one-off return to its roots, but I think it's a testament to the signature style that Inside Number 9 has carved out for itself over the years that this did feel a bit out of place in the series, and it's more like an additional coda to Psychoville than an episode of Inside Number 9 in its own right, because it's much more cartoonish and over the top than Inside Number 9 usually is. I fucking love the shit out of it though. Next up we got Love's Great Adventure, and this one is a bit of a victim of scheduling, because it felt so weird watching what was plainly intended to be a Christmas special in February. I remember reading interviews with them last year around summertime, and they mentioned that the series was finished and ready to go, so I'm guessing that something went wrong internally and it ended up getting broadcast late. So Love's Great Adventure is a basic family drama. They're working class, struggling with money, the son's a fuck-up involved in criminal activity, and he left his kid to be taken care of by his long-suffering parents. But the difference is, it's told like a series of vignettes. Every day in December a new door is opened on the advent calendar, and the viewer sees a couple of minutes of action for that day and gets drip-fed more information about the bigger picture. But we noticeably miss out door number 9, and it's not realised that that's been missed until closer to Christmas, at which point we get a crucial bit of information that's been missing up until now. Typically, I'm less fond of Inside Number 9's straight drama affairs, and that's no different here, but I did find Love's Great Adventure to be quite nice and uplifting. It's fucking miserable in parts, of course, but it's essentially a drama about a family who care for one another through thick and thin, and I couldn't help but feel warm to it on that basis. That and the style of presentation is interesting. The actual story it's playing about with is nothing all that special, but I did appreciate this episode because it's another example of how you're never going to mistake Inside Number 9 for any other bit of TV drama. Next up we got Misdirection, arguably the strongest episode of the series. It's an incredibly dark and quirky revenge tale about rivalries among magicians that's very much in the mould of Riddle of the Sphinx. It also notably guest stars Fionn Whitehead, who played Stefan in Bandersnatch, which strokes the Black Mirror fanboy section of my brain. I found Misdirection to be utterly riveting. The cluttered set and moody lighting foster this disconcerting atmosphere, and the viewer's never quite sure where to look, which of course is incredibly important to a story about characters whose livelihoods depend on misdirection. There are so many twists and turns, and Fionn's an incredible actor who you're never quite sure how to read, and he fits into this role perfectly. I was expecting, of course, for it to turn out that Fionn's character was out for revenge, but when you realise that that's not the twist, and when everything starts to fall into place and you figure out what his character's been doing this whole time, the cathartic feeling you get as the pieces fit together is utterly astonishing. If I were them, I probably would have opened the series with Misdirection because it certainly grabs your attention. Episode 5, Thinking Out Loud, is another episode that experiments with narrative presentation and is a new favourite for me. At first it feels like a series of sketches featuring 7 disparate characters filmed separately and presented in wildly different styles, my favourite of which is easily the parody of the social media influencer, because those jump cuts are so on point. But as the episode goes on, we start to trace the links between the characters, and it could have gone in all manner of different directions, and it totally shocks you with the insanely clever twist that links them all together. If you haven't seen this one yet, I won't spoil it for you, because that moment of realisation was intense. I thought when I rewatched Thinking Out Loud it wasn't going to work as well now that I know how the characters are all linked, but there was so much I didn't notice the first time round. Thinking Out Loud truly lives up to Inside Number 9's purpose of using as little as possible to tell such deep and complex stories. This one is just truly breathtaking, and if you watch any of these, make it this one. The series ends with the stakeout, and it's a bit of a strange one to end the series on, but a good one nonetheless. Previous finales have all been horror pieces, and the stakeout's no different, but unlike previous finales, it's very moody and subdued, and it's not so much chilling as it is a downer. It's very short on spectacle, and the location's a lot more limited than the gothic mansions of the harrowing and seance time, being entirely set inside a police car. It's an incredibly strong character piece. Steve Pemberton is a remarkable actor, and I wish he was in more things. His performance as the police constable recovering from the death of his partner is one of his most powerful yet. I love how the game of Fortunately Unfortunately that he and his partner are playing gets out of control and he winds up on a morbid train of thought quite by accident. It's a highly realistic portrait of a man dealing with trauma. And this is mirrored in the episode's structure. It starts out being a straight-faced police drama, winding its way through twists and turns in the narrative, and the characterization is so intimate and powerful that you barely even notice as the episode slowly begins to transform itself into a horror story. And that just heightens the shock you get at the end as the twist recontextualizes everything. Anyway, that was Series 5, and fortunately we've now had confirmation that Series 6 and Series 7 have been commissioned. Although, unfortunately, the BBC didn't just commission them up to Series 9 and put any fears to bed that we're not getting 9 series of the show overall. Seriously, it should be fucking enshrined in law that Inside Number 9 must be 9 series long. No more, no less. That is how it works. Although, admittedly, if they get there and they want to do a 10th series, then of course I don't think any fan would say no.